This video is sponsored by Cookiebot. The digital marketing landscape is changing big time, and the ability to track users on your website is no longer going to be something that you generally get. In fact, in the long term in digital marketing, it's probably going to be quite the privilege. So the reason for this is because the world is changing. Users are becoming more privacy centric. They're thinking more about which data they're sharing with people on websites, and as business owners and as marketers, we need to adapt to that change. We've been dealing with privacy laws here in the UK and in Europe for quite some time now because of GDPR, so we've got loads of experience in dealing with the situation. So a lot of my American viewers right now might be thinking, why am I watching this? Why do I need this? Well, things are changing for you too. You already have CCPA legislation in the state of California, which is very closely linked with GDPR legislation in terms of what the state is asking for website owners to do. But there's even more legislation coming down the line as well. Florida, Texas, Montana, Oregon, and Colorado all have their own legislations going through. And in fact, Colorado's most recent one was actually sent to me by email from Google themselves, because Google Ads and Google as a company are taking all of these law changes extremely seriously, which means they are going to reflect the legislation that they're actually using in Google Ads against the legislation in your state or country, which means if you're not managing privacy correctly, Google could stop you from advertising. And yes, I know that you're probably thinking that these big legislations and government bodies won't necessarily go after your little small business. There's bigger fish to fry out there with big businesses violating these rules all the time. And to some degree, you're right. But let's be honest. A lot of small businesses still get fined. In fact, I know a business owner here in the UK who turns over less than £500,000 who got a fine from the legislative body who pushes GDPR. And this is going to become a bigger and bigger problem as they get more resources. But as I say, the main thing is Google is listening to them, and they are going to reflect the changes to these legislations within their product itself. And you want to keep advertising, don't you? Of course you do. So you need to take action. So today we are taking action, and that action is in this training. First of all, I'm going to walk you through exactly what cookies are, because a lot of people don't actually know what they are or how they work, so it's important to get that fundamental correct. Then we're going to look at cookie consent management, and the way we do that is using something called a consent management platform. And in today's video and this training course, I have partnered with consent management platform Cookiebot, who are going to help us understand how to use their platform for consent management, and we're going to understand how to set up consent management for your business using Cookiebot. Finally, I'm going to show you guys how to set up something called consent mode, which is basically Google's way of managing user consent directly with their Google Ads and Google Analytics cookies, because when a person chooses which level of consent and tracking they want, Google wants to reflect those changes in the data they gather, because by doing that, it means that if a person opts in fully, then you can track them normally without any issues. But if people opt out of certain types of tracking, Google needs to understand themselves as a business what they can do with the little data that is left over when somebody opts out, which is where consent mode comes in, giving users a bit more data than they normally would get if a user completely opted out. I'm going to show you how to set that up as well using a consent management platform. Oh, and by the way, this video is sponsored by User-Centric's Cookiebot, so I've put a link in the description below, which will give you a free trial of Cookiebot. And of course, it's an affiliate link, so you'll be helping the channel if you did move forward with that. But let's get on with the tutorial. Let me show you how to manage your cookies so you can be ready for a privacy-led internet. Okay guys, so we are going to start off understanding first of all what consent management actually is, and of course the best place to start is understanding fundamentally what cookies are. What are cookies? Well, web cookies, also known as HTTP cookies, are small pieces of data stored on a user's device when they visit a website. Now, cookies, they aren't software. They're not like a tracking system or some kind of bespoke software. They are very small files, basically text files that basically interface with other bits of software. So what I mean by that is if a user goes to a website, the web browser itself they access that website with can store cookies, or sometimes a device itself. So if you're using a mobile device, for example, that device can also store the cookie file from that website. So when the website you access pushes that cookie onto your device, then it's stored in the browser or in the device itself. In the context of analytics, cookies play a crucial role because that little file that gets dropped on the user's device is basically going to let analytics understand how they behave on a website. So because you're getting a file pushed onto your website, from a website onto your device, it's important that a user has to consent to that action. So let's visualize it. You click on a website, you click on a site, and then you go onto the page. The page loads. As part of that page load process, using GA4 as an example, the GA4 cookie is dropped into that person's device. So you go on the website, the page loads, the cookie is pushed onto the device, and it's stored in the browser, and that cookie is now being used to track the user's behavior across the website. So in the area of Google Analytics 4, unique session ID is created, and the user's ID is also created, so that particular user who accesses that website gets a specific ID which can be referenced in Google Analytics for future sessions and the current session. So all of their behavior, like page views, interactions, events, session durations, all of that data is basically fed back into Google Analytics because of that cookie. So you can kind of understand why they are so important, and why when users opt out of getting a cookie, you lose so much value as a marketer. So of course that cookie is pushed onto their device. So it's a Chrome browser. So in terms of a browser itself, if you're using Chrome, it could be pushed into your Chrome browser. If you're using a mobile device, it could be pushed onto your mobile device and stored on the device. And all of that behavior data is pushed and stored in GA4, so you can understand your users of your website better. So why do we need consent management? Why do cookies need to be managed via consent? Because of legislation like GDPR, of course, and many other bits of state legislation in the US that is coming in across, many states in the US, but also in India as well, in Brazil. There's loads of this legislation going on, and it's basically going to be the direction of travel for the entire internet. So it's important to take action now to future-proof your business. So we need to have a mechanism to give users a choice as to which cookies they would like to accept on their device, or which cookies they would like to reject. So by using that kind of mechanism to give people a choice as to whether they're tracked or not, you need a consent management platform, also known as a CMP. In this tutorial, we are going to be using User-Centric's Cookiebot for all of the demonstrations that we're doing of the consent management platform. So as I say, a consent management platform allows users to choose which types of cookies should be allowed to track their behavior and deliver a website experience. So you're giving users the choice as to whether they are tracked on a website or not. They can opt out of different types of cookies or customize the way in which they are wanting to be tracked on your website. So here are the types of cookie, because we often think that cookies are only for marketing purposes to track conversions, but no, there are many types of cookie, and some of them are going to be way more important to the overall user experience than others. So you have 5 types of cookie. You have necessary cookie, preference cookie, statistics cookie, marketing cookies, and unclassified cookies. So let's start off with necessary. These are the kinds of cookies that you need to have on a website in order for it to function. All consent management platforms basically don't let users turn this off, because it's unfair if, say, for example, GDPR legislation said users can control necessary cookies. If they opt out of a certain type of cookie, the whole website breaks and you can't actually have a customer use your website. That's not going to be any good to anybody. So necessary cookies are cookies that guarantee the functionality of a website. Some websites use these necessary cookies to deliver forms, for example, or content on a page, or whatever it might be. These things are very important. Also, for an e-commerce store, cookies are used to store which items a customer has in their basket. So if you're shopping on an e-commerce store and somebody has items in their basket and they opt out of all cookies, including necessary cookies, their basket will never be saved. And that tells you why necessary cookies cannot be blocked, because it breaks the whole website experience. Next, you have preference cookies. Now, these are cookies that can be blocked by the user, but if a user is using a website and they block these kind of preferential cookies, it means their experience is going to be a bit limited. So, for example, it's a script that remembers when somebody has chosen a specific option on a website. So, say, for example, you go onto a store and you set your preferences. Maybe you like certain, in the interface to look a certain way. Maybe you want a certain format of currency, or maybe you want a certain, maybe there's a pop-up that they've refused. All of those kind of things that they've stored as a choice they've made, those preferences are using cookies to remember those user choices. Users can deactivate these kinds of cookies, but they are quite important to user experience. But as I say, users can still potentially, disable these cookies. Next, we get to the really core cookies that all marketers are interested in. And of course, we start with statistic cookies. These are for analytics, so understanding how users are behaving on your website. Key candidate for this kind of cookie is, of course, GA4. This cookie is going to be the one that allows GA4 to get the data it needs to track users effectively. Then we have finally the bottom of the funnel, very much marketing cookies for tracking conversions and personalizing advertising. If somebody goes onto a website and they perform a very high value action, that conversion tag firing for Google Ads, for example, or on Facebook advertising, that pixel that allows Facebook to track user behavior, but also deliver personalized advertising, these cookies can be managed as well, and users could potentially opt out of being tracked by these actions. So that breaks down all the different types of cookie you're going to encounter, and we're going to basically set up consent management using Cookiebot in order to manage all of these different types of cookie. So before we continue, I just want to show you a live preview of a cookie banner and consent management. So this is Cookiebot's actual cookie banner on their website. And what you can see here is you can deny all cookies, you can allow all cookies, or you can customize your experience. Now, when you customize your experience, you will see all the different types of cookies we just talked about. So necessary cookies that make a website viable and functional. You cannot disable these cookies, otherwise the whole website breaks, and you cannot legislate that businesses break the user experience and not make sales. That's not right. So you have to enable these cookies. Then you have preferences, which is what we talked about, enable in terms of websites remembering basic information that you prefer and what you want to use and your options and settings that you've chosen. Then you have statistical cookies like Google Analytics, and then, as I mentioned, you have marketing cookies as well. There is one more I didn't mention, which is unclassified cookies. Now, these are cookies that are basically in the process of being decided as to where they should sit. There are tons of systems and programs out there on the web, so sometimes it's quite difficult to understand what types of cookie that you should sit under for a specific type of program. It's difficult to understand, and that's why you have those options. Then you have, of course, your choices. Let's actually, on this occasion, go to allow all. That closes the banner, and as simple as that, the user has consented to have all tracking. If they hit deny, then all of the non-necessary cookies would have been removed from the user experience, meaning that the user is basically untracked. So that is essentially what cookie management is. It's giving the user a choice of their preferences when they enter a website. Okay, so now we're going to look at the Google Tag Manager, and the reason for this is because using a cookie management platform works a lot better with a tag management solution, because a tag management solution allows you to do way more things than you could ordinarily do with your tags on site if they were hard-coded. Working with a cookie management platform, all will become very clear in a second. So first of all, Google Tag Manager, for those who don't know what it is, it's a tag management tool that allows you to manage all of your conversion tracking and marketing tags in one place, as opposed to manually coding or requesting your developer to code all of your tags onto your website one at a time, or hard code them into the code base of the website itself. It gives the marketer back control of managing those tags and allowing you to inject them into the website using automated rules that you can build within the Tag Manager interface itself. So say for argument's sake you want to add your Google Analytics tag and your Google Ads tags to the website. Instead of instructing a developer to do so, having the Tag Manager installed, once it's installed on the website, which you may need a developer to help you with, but once it's done, then you can inject these codes into the website yourself and set rules up for how they should behave in terms of things like events for Google Analytics, for example. You can use settings and options within Tag Manager to manage the entire process, so it gives you back control. So to visualize, you have an analytics tag, you have a Google Ads tag. Instead of putting them directly into the website, you put them into the Google Tag Manager, and then the Google Tag Manager container tag goes onto every single page of your website, and that allows those two pieces of code in terms of Google Analytics and Google Ads to work seamlessly in your website without needing a developer, and you can add more codes beyond just those two through Google Tag Manager as well. So all you need to set up Google Tag Manager is obviously you need to create an account, you need to add that container tag I just mentioned to every page of your website, and set it up in a way that means every subsequent page that's created in future also has it pre-installed. So you need to kind of make sure it's installed in the right way so it propagates to all new pages and posts in your website. Again, if you need a developer to help you with this, this is the part you need a developer for, but once it's installed, then all of your tracking should be able to be done by yourself. So advantages, of course, you know exactly what tags are being used. There's nothing worse than going into a website and seeing loads of legacy tags that have been hard-coded, and you need a developer to take them off the website. With Tag Manager, you can see every single tag on the website. You can enable them, disable them, add new tags, remove tags, all from one interface, but you can also perform some pretty complex event and conversion tracking without needing any developer intervention. Normally to code, for example, a form submission where there's no thank you page, you need a developer to help you with this. With Tag Manager, you don't need that at all. But let's get to the main point of this, which is cookie management and the Google Tag Manager. Why is it so important for cookie management? And it's quite simple, because cookies on site are delivered through those tags. So when I say things like Google Ads tag, or the Google Analytics tag, or the Google or the Facebook Pixel, all of these kind of marketing and analytics tags, if they're managed in the Google Tag Manager, then all that happens is the cookie management platform, so in this case it will be Cookiebot. When Cookiebot talks to Tag Manager, it can inform and update the tagging across your website based on those user preferences very, very seamlessly. Whereas if they were hard-coded, that communication between the cookie management platform and the tags themselves is much more difficult to initiate and to create. So it makes life a lot easier in that respect, but it also means there's some very cool customization you can do to those tags and how it manages user consent when it comes to something called consent mode, which we'll go on to in this training, which means the Google Tag Manager working seamlessly with Cookiebot, you can actually manage that consent mode process to enable Google to capture only the data it needs, but to also give you a bit more data than you ordinarily would get without consent mode. Using a Tag Manager plus Cookiebot setup makes life a lot easier, as you'll see as we progress through this training. Okay, so let's create a Google Tag Manager account. If you've done this already, of course, you can skip past this point. So let's go ahead and type in Google Tag Manager. And then here we are, Google Tag Manager, click the first result. It's going to ask you to sign in with your Google account because you need a Google account to have a Google Tag Manager account. So I'm going to go ahead and create a Google account. Okay, so I've created a Google account. It's very easy to do that process. And here I am in the Google Tag Manager with a brand new Google Tag Manager account. So I need to create what's called my container account, where I can actually create the tags I need to put on the website. So I'm going to create an account and I'm going to call this one Cookiebot Training. Leave everything the same. Obviously choose your country. It's a website, so the website I'm going to use is darrentheplumber.com. And then it's a website, and I'm going to create my tag. This is the website we're going to use for this training session. Agree to the terms, and then you can create your account. And here it is. And these are the two pieces of code you need to add to your website in order to use Google Tag Manager. This snippet goes into the head tag. This snippet goes into the body tag. I'm not going to show you how to do it because the way it's done will completely depend on the website you're using, whether it's Squarespace, WordPress, Shopify, whatever it might be. So speak to your developer in order to install this. You can actually email this across to your developer as well to make sure they have this code. So you can download it by copying this and sending it in an email in order to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and install this. I'm not going to show you how it's done on the website I'm using. Again, as I say, it doesn't make any sense because it's different for basically every web technology. But we're going to skip ahead and we're going to start the actual tutorial of using Cookiebot to inform the tags on the website on how to fire based on user preference. Okay, so now I'm going to create a Google Analytics account and my Google Ads conversion tracking as well. Now, I'm not going to spend too long on this. If you don't know how to do this, check out my other videos. But basically what I'm going to do is put my Google Analytics tags into Google Tag Manager, my Google Ads tags into Google Tag Manager to put us in a position where we can use Cookiebot to deliver the privacy settings that we need. So let's go ahead and create the Google Analytics account. So Google Analytics. Head over to Analytics, sign into Analytics. Of course, I don't have an account, so it's going to ask me to start measuring. I'm going to call this Darren the Plumber. Just click Next. Darren the Plumber. Leave everything the same. US, obviously choose your country and currency, but I'm doing it for no reason, so I'm going to just click anything. Small. That's fine. Industry, I'll just choose whatever. This is basically going to inform whether or not you have different settings and prompts during the setup. This is not an important part necessarily, but I'm going to click on Generate Leads. And then I'm going to agree to the terms, accept the data processing terms. And then here we go. So now I'm going to choose a platform. It's a website, not an Android or iOS app. The website is darrentheplumber.co.uk. And I'm going to call it Darren the Plumber. Okay, so enhanced measurement is on as well. So keep that ticked because it's a really interesting thing to have on. Helps you get more data. So create and continue. And here is my data stream. And here is the information to set up my Google tag. So once that's done, you will see all of the information you need to set up your Google Tag Manager Analytics tag. So I'm going to hop back over to Tag Manager, go to Tags, create a new tag, and I'm going to call it GA4 tag. Tag configuration is Google Analytics, of course, and it's your Google tag. So this is the tag you're going to use for all of your measurement. Your tag ID is this measurement ID right here. Paste that in. Deliver across all pages, and then hit save. And it's as simple as that. Hit submit to publish your tag. And that tag is now published and live on the website, and that is my Google Analytics setup complete. Very, very easy. Oh, and by the way, if you're trying to find the information I just showed you from a new account setup from your original account, you just have to go over to admin, and then go over to data streams, and then you'll find this exact same information right in here through data streams. Okay, so here I am in a test Google Ads account. I'm going to create a conversion action for the website. So I'm going to go ahead and go to goals and then go on to new conversion action, and it's on the website. And I'm going to enter the website domain, which is darrentheplumber.co.uk. I'm just going to copy and paste it from my other screen. Hit scan, which is unfortunately something you have to do when creating a conversion. Ideally, you'd want to skip this. I'm going to create the conversion action manually. I'll leave enhanced conversions on. We'll come back to that later in the tutorial. So now I'm going to go ahead and set up this conversion. Okay, so I've set everything up. I've made it a contact conversion. I've ticked it so that it's an account default goal, so it's used for optimization purposes. Given it a name, given it an arbitrary value of £1, and I'm going to count every one conversion as opposed to every single one because it's a lead gen campaign. If somebody submits a form multiple times in a session, it's still the same single customer. I'll leave all the other things default. It's not important for the purposes of this tutorial. I'm going to hit done, and I'm going to go ahead and hit agree and continue. And this is the last part now. I'm going to use the Google Tag Manager to set up this conversion. So use the Google Tag Manager. You'll see the conversion ID and the conversion label. So I'm going to go ahead and jump back over to Google Tag Manager and start copying and pasting these in. So here's the Google Tag Manager account. I'm going to jump in there again, and I'm going to go to tags. There's our Google Analytics 4 tag. I'm going to add the Google Ads conversion tracking. So I'm going to call this Google Ads conversion. Okay, so that's done. Go on to Google Ads and then go on to conversion tracking. It's going to ask you for your conversion linker tag. So it's important to create this tag in Google Tag Manager as well, because it allows Google to get more data to link together user activity to measure conversions more effectively. So I'm going to create this as well. I'm going to call this conversion linker and then hit save. That tag's now been created. You can see it in the background here. Now all it's going to ask me for here is my conversion ID and conversion label in order to set this up. So I'll hop back over to the account for Google Ads, and then we'll copy the conversion ID and the conversion label. There we go. So those have been pasted in. Now it's going to ask for the triggering rules. Now for this particular website, the triggering rule needs to be my thank you page URL, and the end of that thank you page URL is /thanks. So I need the tag to fire when that thank you page has loaded. So I'm going to go over to triggering, and then instead of all pages, I'm going to add a new rule. I'm going to call this thank you page. So tag configuration is going to be page view. Some page views, page URL contains /thanks. Hit save again, And there's my conversion linker, my Google Analytics tag, and my Google Ads conversion tracking. I'm going to hit submit and then publish this container to the live website. And there we have it. So if you're ever running your tags outside of the Google Tag Manager, you now have all of your tags within the Google Tag Manager, which means we are now ready to use a cookie management platform, Cookiebot, to get things started to manage user privacy in the right way. Okay, so here is the website that we are using for this tutorial. I've set up the Google Tag Manager and set up the Google Ads and Google Analytics tracking for the website. Now, of course, if you've completed the steps previous to this one that I've showed you, great, but I'm guessing a lot of you also skipped past that because you already have your tags set up using the Google Tag Manager. So the next step we need to do is obviously to find out which cookies are on site, which types of cookies are firing, are they necessary, are they marketing cookies? Of course, there's going to be marketing and analytics cookies because we've just set them up. But the first thing to do is head over to cookiebot.com. And now you're on this website, we're going to put in the URL of our website to see which cookies are on site and what compliance work is needed. Now, of course, it's going to fail this check, but it's the best way to find out which cookies are on site and to get started with a free trial of Cookiebot. So there's the website address. I'm going to click on the Check My Website button, and the scan will start now. Now, it's important that if you want to get the results of your scan, you need to put your email address in here. I'm going to populate the email address here. That's been populated. We're just waiting for the results of this scan. Once we've got them, we can see where we are with our cookies on site. Okay, it looks like the scan has completed. Let's get the results. And of course, it's going to say high risk because of course we haven't got any cookie management on site, and that's the whole purpose of what we're doing. So when you go down and you have a look at the scan results, you can see there are 6 necessary cookies, which is good because they are needed to deliver the functionality of the website, which is fine. There are 9 marketing cookies as well. Of course, we know that because of Google Ads and Google Analytics. And there's an unclassified one as well, which we need to find out a bit more about. So in order to get started, let's start our 14-day free trial and sign up to an account with Cookiebot. So I'm going to create an account right now. Okay, email address confirmed, logging back in, and we will hit the admin console of Cookiebot. So just fill in a few bits of information about yourself, and we'll go to next, and get started. So now we are on the dashboard of Cookiebot. The next step is to get started setting things up to actually have the compliance box on the website and to bring the website forward into a compliant state. Okay, so we're going to set up the cookie compliance banner on the website now, but before I move ahead with that, I just want to explain to you that everything I'm about to show you now is using the premium features of Cookiebot as part of the 14-day trial that you get. So everything that I'm going to show you is going to be using premium features. So when you look at what you get between the two options, between premium and non-premium, we're going to be doing a lot of customizations, which will be premium features. We're also going to be doing custom branding in terms of the user experience as well. The way that the actual module functions, a lot of it would be redacted if you were to use the free version. Now, the free version will still keep you compliant, but just to make you aware that some of the paid options make the banner look a lot nicer and give you a few more features as well. So that's just something to be aware of. So to get started, we need to put the website URL into this box here. So I'm going to jump over to the website, copy and paste, and then go to next. And this is where you get to design the banner as to how you want it to look and behave. So as I say again, these are all premium features I'm going to show you, but I'm going to show you nonetheless that this is what's possible using the system. So there's two options here. You have dialogue or bar. Basically, I prefer bar because it's more subtle. You don't want to get in the face of your customers when they're trying to complete an action that's not choosing a compliance option. The primary reason they're on your website isn't to do that, so you want to make it as minimal as possible. So that's the step one. Next, you have a little option to animate the banner, whether it slides in from the bottom or doesn't. I don't like the animation because it draws attention to the banner when really it needs to be secondary to the main content of your website. And the position, of course, is bottom because you can choose bottom or top, but if you put it at the top, again, it's distracting for the user. I place it down towards the bottom. So that's your layouts. Next, you have your design. So, of course, you have two themes to choose from. If you want to use out-the-box themes, you have light theme and dark theme, which comes with the free version of Cookiebot. If you wanted to customize it, which I would advise you do if you wanted to go down the paid route, then you can make it look in line with your brand colors and give it more of an impact as well. So background is the white background here, the text is black as you can see here, the highlight color is the link color you see in here, so you might see a little link down here, and then shade is just the color for the secondary shading of the box. All very self-explanatory, all interesting, but the main thing you want to really customize when you put your own branding on is the button, especially the allow all button, because ultimately you want to make sure that people click that button so you can get maximum marketing data for all of your campaigns and your website analytics. So the color of that button becomes very important. For the website we're doing on this tutorial is pretty much blue, so I'll leave it blue, but I would ordinarily leave it blue, but just so I can show you how this works, if I choose to change the button background color to something like red, you can see it updating as I move the colors around. So you can see that it does change as you move things around. Same for the text, you can change the text color and the border color of the options of the module as well. And the secondary options here, these button colors are also pretty important because these buttons are basically what you don't want the user to do. You want everybody to opt in, so you need to make the opt out or the choosing of options much more subtle than the main opt-in option because you want to get marketing data. So customization of these buttons becomes quite important. So for button 2 and button 3, you can customize these based on something that you can make more subtle. So maybe you remove the border, for example, and just have the text alone. Now, the final thing you can do is after you've done all of that, you can choose your logo. The logo shows here where you can see this little cookie icon here, which is Cookiebot's default fallback. So the logo shows in a 1x1, so a square shape. So if you have a rectangular logo, you might need to choose a more icon-based logo because it's quite small and it appears quite square. Finally, this is the interesting part now, is you have your compliance level. There's 2 options for compliance, explicit consent and implied consent. Now, again, with the free version, you can only use explicit consent. And what that means is the user has to, basically the user, if they don't choose an option and they continue browsing the website, the system will block all marketing, analytics, and non-necessary cookies from activating. So you're basically waiting for the user to give you permission to basically use the data that they put through the website. So you need to get their permission explicitly. Implied consent, on the other hand, means that if they don't choose an option, you're just implying that they want to opt in. So your cookies will fire and you will gather data as they browse the website. But basically it means that you're not necessarily waiting for their compliance to put their input in to allow tracking. Now, implied consent is going to give you way more marketing data, but the level of compliance against GDPR or whichever state laws and legislations you have, that's going to be dependent on what those laws are. I'm not going to advise you to use implied consent, even though it's all about your level of risk and level of comfort with risk. If you are happy to use implied consent because it will get you over the line, allow you to advertise on Google for the foreseeable future because you have a cookie management banner in place and Google is happy with it, and you activate what's called consent mode, which we'll go on to, then maybe you can go with this and the likelihood of you being fined is pretty low. But ultimately, my job is to advise you that you should probably follow the laws of your state and actually apply this properly. Implied consent is one of those options. Then you have the type of compliance for the options to opt in or out. So multi-level is what we've chosen because you can have decline only, which basically is a strange one because you don't want to give people the option only to block without allowing. You have accept only, which kind of harks back to the original cookie banner days where it's kind of the only option you can choose is to opt in, which is again against the legislation. But then you also have accept or decline, which means you can allow or deny. But basically, the best option for me is if you go to multi-level and then choose the buttons of allow and selection. What this means is either they allow all or they have to make a few more annoying choices in order to opt out of tracking. So generally speaking, what happens on the back of that is most people opt in. If they don't want to opt in, they really must want to opt out, meaning they go in to customize the options because it means that they have to go in and choose their individual options for the cookie allowance. To me, that is the best way to maximize the number of people who are implemented in tracking. But again, is it compliant with, the actual rules and legislations? Probably not. But again, it's down to your level of comfort. But I'm just showing you the features here. Again, for the free version, you don't have this option. You can only choose the default option, which is to show all 3 options to choose whether they accept, deny, or choose their level of tracking. Then finally, you have distribution, which is where the banner actually shows. Ideally, you don't want to show the banner in territories and areas that are not within your remit of needing to show the banner, so people who don't need to see it don't get interrupted when they browse your website, especially for those global businesses. So choose the area that you need to look at. So if you look at the Americas, you can do North America, you could choose the United States and choose the state that you're in. If you're the UK or the EU, you can do EU and European Economic Area only. You can do all visitors if you wanted to, but basically it means you can choose which territories the banner actually shows in. So that is the options all on the left hand side there. You also have a few more things to look at as well here. So that configures the design. You also have content as well. So all the content on the banner that explains what the banner is for and how it works. You can customize the text in this section as well in terms of the cookie warning. Generally, I find the default text does the job, but you may want to shorten it because, again, less content means less of an interruption. The banner takes up less space. There's less things for the user to be distracted by. So actually, it makes sense to potentially take a little bit of time, shorten this, make it in line with what's compliant, but also make it so it's not too long. And then finally, you have privacy. Basically, there's a bubble that appears in the corner of the screen, meaning the user could potentially change their level of tracking during their website session. So once they've opted in, say for argument's sake, later on they wanted to say, no, I don't want to opt in anymore, they could potentially opt out by clicking the bubble that would appear in the corner after they've chosen their compliance options. One thing to note when you turn this off, though, is a bit of a balance, because one of the cool things that Cookiebot does is it produces a cookie consent declaration for your website, where you just need to embed the code and it shows on your website. If you turn this off, then that feature won't work. And here's the declaration text. So basically, if you turn it off, it doesn't work. But if you turn it on, then it will work, and you can actually choose and customize how it looks when it's there. Again, it's up to you. It's a balance between user experience and willingness to make sure your website stays clean and easy to use versus the level of compliance that you want to give the user. It depends on the business use case and your internal discussions for your business. Once you've done that, you go on to the next section. And this is where you actually start to look at how to manually implement, not even necessarily manually, but how to implement Cookiebot onto your website. Now that you've chosen all your settings and options to customize it, now it's time to actually get it onto your website. And of course, we'll be using the Google Tag Manager option. Okay, so let's get this on the website using the Google Tag Manager. Now, of course, you could manually copy this code and put it into the head tag, but then there's a bit more, I suppose, development needed to get this to work properly if you were to go down that route. We're going to go down the Tag Manager route because it's a lot easier. So first of all, let's head into Google Tag Manager because there's a few things we need to do. We've obviously got the tags we created historically here. What we need to do now is actually create the Cookiebot tag so that we can deliver this banner on the website. Okay, so we're going to create a new tag. We're going to call it Cookiebot. Then we're going to configure the tag. Now, Google Tag Manager doesn't just do Google products, it does all kinds of products, as you can see down here. But in addition to the products you've got on this page here, you can also go into the marketplace, which is what we'll have to do. So click this option at the top to go through to the community template gallery. And basically it means you can choose different templates built by many third parties, including Cookiebot, so we can implement the Cookiebot tag. So I'm going to do a search for Cookiebot, and there it is. Now this tag obviously injects scripts. It can, of course, access consent states, which is of course what we want to use. All these consent options, which we'll go on to a bit later to understand what consent mode is and how easy it is to set up. We want to install this on the workspace. So click this blue button to add it to your workspace. And there you go. That's now added as a tag we're going to build. Next, we need our Cookiebot ID. Where do we get this from? Let's hop back over to Cookiebot, and you'll see it's going to be in the script. This text right here is going to be where you pick up your ID. So I'm going to copy this. That's our ID. I'm going to head over to Tag Manager. I'm going to paste it in here. The CDN region I'm going to leave as .com because we're using the .com variant, not the .eu variant, so we'll keep it as it is. Leave this as it is as well. We want to enable consent mode, which again I'll go on to. It's a really important part of this process that I'm going to cover in a second. But also we want to keep all of these other things default. There's nothing we need to change here. The majority of use cases for this system won't require you to add any more information or change anything here. But you can change the consent state based on region within here as well. You can add different regions and do that, but we're not going to do that for now because we've chosen our region in Cookiebot itself. So we're just going to deliver this as normal and let Cookiebot itself, the system, decide how to deliver these to different regions. So that's it. All we need to do now is trigger this tag to fire on all pages, and then hit save, and then submit, and then publish that live and hit continue. And that's it. We have now published Cookiebot's banner onto the website, and what we need to do is just double check that that website actually has the banner on. It can take a few minutes. Sometimes it takes up to 15-20 minutes sometimes for it to start showing. So what you would need to do as well is be aware of caching. So maybe if you want to check the banner is live, use an incognito tab, but I'm going to go ahead and check the banner is live right now. And here it is. The banner is working perfectly fine, implemented through Google Tag Manager. The color customization we used has been saved in terms of that blue we chose. We have allow selection or allow, and you've got the selection down the bottom here in terms of necessary, which you can't change. Preferences, statistics, marketing as well. So yeah, they're all there, ready to go. The page now has the cookie banner in place. Now what we're going to do is we're going to look at consent mode, what it actually is and how to implement it using Cookiebot. Okay, so we're going to talk about consent mode now, which is a very important part of cookie management and using a cookie management platform like Cookiebot. So what is consent mode? Well, consent mode allows you to communicate your consent choices that the user makes directly with Google, and it means Google can adapt the behavior of its tags on site based on those consent choices. Now you might be thinking, well, if the user chooses to deny or allow, then basically that means Google either works or doesn't work in terms of its tagging. Well, no, because consent mode is a bit different. Even though Google will honor the tracking choices a user makes, it adapts its behavior in a very specific way based on those choices, which we'll go on to in a second. So just to visualize this, here's the cookie management banner. Person makes their choice. The choice is informed onto Google, who looks at what the choices the user has made on site are. They adapt the behavior of their website tags based on those choices. Now, again, as I say, it's not binary. It's not a case of the user opted out, so therefore that's it, and the user opted in, therefore I'm going to track. It changes the behavior of the tags based on those options to allow Google to get better data and measurement regardless of user choice. Of course, if the user opts in, Google gets not perfect measurement, but great measurement. If the user opts out, you might be thinking you get no measurement, but because of consent mode, you can get some initial data. So why set up consent mode? What is it? So as I say, when a user doesn't consent to ads or cookies or analytics cookies, Google basically will have to adjust the behavior of the tags based on the user's decision not to use cookies for advertising or analytics purposes. So without cookies, you know you're going to miss out on data. You're not going to get all of the data that the user would put through the website in terms of conversion tracking or behaviorals in analytics. And as a result of that, straight away you would basically lose the visibility of that data in your platforms, whether it's Google Ads or Google Analytics. They are no longer able to basically see exactly what's happened on site. So what does Google do knowing that this is the case? Well, consent mode. This is why we use consent mode, because consent mode allows for conversion modeling to take place, which can fill in the gaps left by people who have opted out of tracking. So in a scenario where somebody says, no, I don't want to be tracked, and then Google can't see exactly what they're doing in site, consent mode allows you to pass aggregated data through your tags based on multiple user behavior, all anonymized, and basically fill in the gaps in your conversions based on the likelihood of behavior-based analytics of that user, and it will make that decision whether or not to pass a conversion into your analytics platforms or Google Ads platform based on that user behavior because of consent mode. It can observe historical trends and behaviors, and it will understand the relationship between those behaviors and the conversion and allow you to fill in gaps in that conversion data, which is a really, really good thing, especially in a world where in the long term, a lot of people are going to opt out of marketing tracking. So your campaigns will benefit from increased conversion data because the gaps that would have been missed from those users who are opted out can be modeled and reported, which means better data, which means more data for the bidding algorithm in terms of Google Ads, meaning better campaign performance. So you're filling in those gaps in conversions with modeled data. Now, of course, with modeled data, there's obviously a risk because, of course, it's not 100%. It's not going to be exactly 100% accurate. So you need to be aware of that as well. But the main thing is, the more data you get into your campaigns, the better Google can steer your campaign's bidding algorithm to find more customers again. So even though it's modeling conversions, it's a good thing, because obviously, of course, if you've ever used Facebook ads, that platform does exactly the same thing. It models conversions based on user behavior, and these systems are getting better at it every day. So of course, we've talked about Google Ads and we've talked about GA4. We want to start with Google Ads and how consent mode helps with your Google Ads data. For conversion modeling to work, for Google Ads, you need at least 700 clicks every 7 days per country and domain. So unless you hit that threshold, you're not going to be able to benefit from modeled conversions, because if you're under that threshold, Google is not going to be confident in its model. Therefore, it won't let you get additional uplifting conversions when people opt out of tracking. So that's something to consider for smaller advertisers who basically don't have that level of traffic going through their campaigns. Modeling becomes much more difficult. But once the threshold is met, Google will start looking at your conversion behaviors and modeling the data to fill in gaps in conversions from users who don't consent. So when this actually starts working, you'll start to see increased conversions in your account as a result of these modeled conversions being pushed into your campaigns. So let's go ahead and set up consent mode for Cookiebot so we can actually go ahead and implement that now. Okay, so we're back inside the Google Tag Manager, and what we want to do now is set up our tags to ensure they work with consent mode. So let's start off with GA4. I'm going to click on the GA4 tag, and if we click on the tag configuration and go to advanced settings, you'll see an option down here called consent settings. If you click this drop down, you're going to see a bunch of I suppose tags along here that say add storage, add personalization, add user data, analytics storage. Now these relate to this. These are the types of consent Google can see in consent mode and the consent types Google has as a default out the box for setting consent types. So add storage enables storage for cookies related to advertising. Add user data is obviously data related to advertising. Add personalization is consent for personalized advertising, and analytics storage is of course related to analytics data. So each of these levels of consent are going to be used in your consent mode settings. So of course, if we jump back into Google Tag Manager, we need to set consent for this GA4 tag, and of course you want to look at analytics storage. So require additional consent for tag to fire, add required consent, and it will be analytics storage. And that's it. Hit save. That one's done. And then we head over to Google Ads conversion, and we go into this tag configuration. We go into advanced settings. We go into consent settings, and we go to require additional consent to fire, add required consent. Of course, you want add storage, add another required consent, and it'll be add user data. There we go. You don't need anything else because this is related to advertising specifically, and this tag isn't doing any personalized advertising either. So there's no add personalization with this tag. So add storage and add user data is all you need to fire on this one. Hit save for this one, and then publish your tag to live. And that's it. That is the end of setting up consent mode on Google Tag Manager. The last thing we need to do is just validate that it's all working properly. Okay, so the first part of validation is just making sure the cookie consent banner is actually firing or not firing cookies as needed. So we need to just validate that it's working as planned, because of course, if it's not set up properly, it won't work properly. So how do we do this? Well, you have the consent banner down here. All we need to do is first of all check which cookies are firing on this page. In order to do that, right click and go to inspect. Click on this little arrow here and then go to application, and then click on the cookies here onto the domain here. So you can see at the moment there are no Google Analytics and no Google Ads cookies firing. Now what happens when I click on allow all? There you go. Did you see that? It updated on the right hand side. We see GA cookies are firing here. So all our advertising cookies are now firing. So we can tell that this has been set up properly, and by allowing consent, those cookies have now fired. So we can tell that Cookiebot is successfully interacting with the Google Tag Manager account to allow or deny cookies based on this setup of the container. That's one part of validation done. The next part of validation is to check whether or not consent mode is working as needed. Okay, so I'm back in Tag Manager and we want to verify whether or not consent mode and consent preferences are updating correctly in terms of what Google sees. And we're going to use Google Tag Manager's preview tool in order to do this. So if you click on preview, what this will do is open up another window, and what we're going to do is put the website URL into here. Let's grab it from here and connect. And this will basically allow Google Tag Manager to provide a live feed as to what's happening on the website. So what you can see here on one screen is the website, which is here. And in the background, what you can see is a feed of everything that's going on in terms of all the tags that are firing, all the things that are happening to the domain and the website in the background, and all the statuses that are going on. So it's very, very easy to validate consent mode, because all you need to do is look at this feed in the summary down the left-hand side. And what you will see is when you set consent mode, all the consent statuses will update on the left-hand side. So if I open up that window again, and we're here, and we're going to set our consent, and if I click on allow all, look what happens. Did you see that? On the left hand side here, all of these cookie consents updated. So you've got marketing, statistics, preferences, and update as well. So that's a status update. The first one is where you've chosen your consent status and it's changed and updated. You've got your preference cookie updates in terms of what was opted in for preferences. You've got your marketing cookies as well, and your statistics cookies. So statistics and marketing. So all of the different types of consent that we're looking at have updated. So Google understands what's going on in the background and has updated the consent appropriately. So there you go. That's how you validate consent mode and how you validate that your actual cookie management platform is doing what it needs to do. And Cookiebot seems to be working perfectly well for this scenario. And that completes the training, and I hope that really helps you understand what cookie consent is, how to use a consent management platform, how to activate consent mode, and prepare your business for the future of a privacy-led internet, because that is where things are going, and preparing now will have you set in a good place for the future. It's better to walk than to be pushed. And I always say this, Google are going to move in the same direction as all of these legislative bodies, like the GDPR situation. Google are following in lockstep with the EU on that one. There's loads of state legislations and laws coming in the US and that are already here, and it makes sense to start complying now. So as I said at the beginning of the video, if you want to take a free trial of Cookiebot, I've put a link in the description below. Again, it's an affiliate link, so of course you'll be helping the channel if you did move forward with anything with Cookiebot. But thank you guys for watching, and I really hope that I've helped you understand the privacy situation on Google Ads and Google Analytics going forward for your business. If you liked this video, please leave a like below. Let me know in the comments if you found this video useful, and of course, if you have any questions about any of the things I've discussed in this video. And I'll see you guys on my next one.